welcome, day 3. Yesterday conference dinner, everyone looks almost good. All right, let's have a look at how to visualize semantic data using some graphs. Someone just asked me what SRF means. It's Semantic Result Formats. So I'm talking about two extensions. The first extension is the knowledge graph, and the second is the graph format of Semantic Result Formats. So, yeah, most of you know me from my own company, Gesinn IT. I'm around for 15 years working with Semantic MediaWiki, but I'm also working since a couple of years for TIB, and at the moment in the lab-linked science knowledge. And in this context, specifically for a project, it's called SFB 1153, and it deals with research data management for tailored forming. And the goal is to establish a research data knowledge management system for that project, and I'm involved there. And as you can see, there is also Semantic MediaWiki in it, and that's the reason why I am, as an SMW and DevOps expert in that team. Unfortunately, the graphics only available in German, so this is the typical setup. So we have domain-specific applications that are run by the researchers, and you have two main components. One is a CCAN, and CCAN is a data store to upload research data and add some metadata to it, and we have Semantic MediaWiki involved, and Semantic MediaWiki takes care of the metadata. So it's not the actual research data, it's metadata about the research data. And both work together, and there's an underlying Sparkle store also involved. But today I want to focus on the right-hand side, on the Semantic MediaWiki part, and especially on graph visualizations. And as you can see, that's a live screen, a screenshot from the system as it looks like at the moment. And as you can see, yeah, it's not really readable. You can discuss about clustering and stuff, but that's not the topic at the moment. It's just to have a graph visualization at all. And that screenshot uses the knowledge graph extension, for example. But let's have a look later. So why do graphs matter at all for Semantic MediaWiki? Well, they reveal relationships, not just the records. So the SMW is all about the connections. We have the triples, we have everything in the store. Most of you are more the technical guys looking at the SMW browse, looking at the triples, but the regular user finds it hard to have this data-driven approach. They want to see something visual beside the regular tables view. And graphs are just nice because it's perfect for the data structure, of course. Yeah, and they help to see the model behind the data, so you can either showcase the data itself or use it to explain the ontology that's implemented in the wiki. And they bridge the human and machine view, and they invite for exploration, especially the knowledge graph. It's something you can play around interactively with, and it's, for some, it's really just fun to click around and see what happens. So these are two extensions. They exist for a while, so that's nothing I have created. For example, the knowledge graph is derived from another interactive graph extension. It has been taken over by Bernard's team and the KMA. They did the first version of this, and I did some extensions recently with some features that were missing, to my opinion. So that's the knowledge graph extension. You can find it on the regular places. And on the other hand, we have the semantic result format, the graph format. That's also super old. And knowledge graph is AP plus JavaScript, so it's a client-side approach in the browser, versus the graph format is PHP plus the Graphviz package. And some of you might know that this has been some pain in the past, because the Graphviz is something that runs on the server outside of the MediaWiki ecosystem. And there has been some extensions specifically to bring Graphviz into MediaWiki. And the current approach is to use the external data extension that has been initialized by Jaron and his team. And this can make use of an external program call, and this brings back the Graphviz functionality. So client-side, server-side. Both use parser functions. So for the knowledge graph, you can have a parser function where you define the initial state of the graph to be shown. And the result formats, as you know, it's a part of the ask parser function where you say, okay, I want to have the output rendered as a graph. So knowledge graph is interactive. You can play with it. I will show you in a minute. Versus the graph format is somehow static. It's dynamic in a way that it is based on the results of an ask query, so it changes when the data changes, but you cannot play around with it or add a node or remove a node. That's possible with the knowledge graph extension. Knowledge graph is based on JavaScript framework. It's the vis-network.js. Result format is based on the Graphviz extension. Knowledge graph has a bonus. It brings a designer, so you can, instead of writing the parser function yourself, you can play with it and then copy and paste the result into the clipboard and reuse that on another page. All right. Let's have a look how this looks like. Okay, so this is the knowledge graph extension, and I used a simple example here. It's a team structure, so you can have a team and sub-teams. So in this case, for example, the solar energy team is part of the team solar hydro. You see one effect that I discovered. That's something we need to look into. Why solar hydro is in a different color. It's because it has incoming and outgoing edges. That's the reason why it's internally discovered as a separate node, but technically it should be a team. So it should have the same blue color as the other teams. But anyway, that's something to fix. So now you can play with it in that way that is really interactive. You can right-click on the nodes, and you get a context menu. And in that context menu, you see the properties that are available on that page that is assigned to that node. You can also directly link to that node. So when I click here, it will open the team in the browser. Here is the team page and so on. You can right-click and say, okay, I want to see, for example, the team code. So this is the ID of the team, or you can add some people that are casted. And what you see immediately, it starts growing and growing. And I know that there are some people in the audience that would now mention, oh, how about clustering or whatever? So that's something that might come in future, or feel free to work on that. But yeah, it grows and grows. What's behind the scenes? What creates that? That's the parser function I mentioned earlier. So you have a list of nodes you can start with. This can be something static. So instead of me using an ask query here to get it filled, you can directly mention a page, or you can use full page name or whatever to get the initial nodes as a list. But I use ask here to get the nodes I want to see here. So it's completely the other way around, like the graph format where you have an ask query with a result format. It's the other way around. Yeah, then you have the initial properties you want to use to create the edges. That's part of team in my case. You have some width and height stuff. And you have a specific configuration or options page in the MediaWiki namespace, knowledge graph options, where you can define tons of parameters, font sizes, edge colors, whatsoever. So this is the gateway to the vis-network configuration. So you can modify this directly in the wiki without the need of messing around with local settings. All right. Let's go back. There are some other smaller features like, I didn't turn it on. Yeah, I already showed you right click and so on. So that's the knowledge graph. It's interactive. With the side effect, can get really big and difficult to read. So because of that, there's another option you can use. Looking at the semantic result formats, it's basically the same set of data, but it looks completely different. It looks more structured, more presenting the hierarchy of the teams. So to my opinion, this is visually clearer than the other approach. And with one effect I wanted to show, because I don't think many of you did use this before. Some time ago, someone else implemented the fields option, where you can say, okay, I wanted to have the fields rendered in the node instead of having separate nodes per property. This is here. The graph fields, yes. If I turn this off, they're gone at all. Let's see. Yeah, now you see this really cluttered thing, and now it becomes completely, to my opinion, useless, because you don't see anything anymore. You're losing the relations, and it's much stronger if you say, okay, put in the graph fields plus even those fields that are pages, because before a recent change I did, each property type page got its own node. And with graph field pages, yes, you say only the first property of type page defines the edges. Everything else goes into the fields labels. And with that approach, you can create something like this team overview or organizational charts, where you want to focus on exactly one of the edges and not each type page getting its own nodes. So, what has been changed recently? So what I built into the KnowledgeGraph extension was support for inverse properties. That's something we required for the SFB project. Because of the ontology design, unfortunately, we have to use inverse properties, and that was not possible before, so I added this one. Then I moved the API that was implemented, so this was a custom API that comes with the KnowledgeGraph extension. I replaced this by an SMW API, slightly enhancing the SMW API to also allow the inverse properties. This is available since SMW 5.1.0, so for 139 based wikis plus forthcoming wikis in the current branch. I added the context menu stuff we've seen, and some visualization things, like you have now a color palette you can define in local settings, and the colors are static, so there's a hash created. Before that it was somehow random, so every time you open the graph it looks different colors, and now it's hashed, so it remains with the same set of colors looking always the same, and you can add the custom palette to the local settings. And for the result formats, the recent changes, this was the thing I just mentioned with the graph field pages. That's important if you just want to have one page property used to create the edges. That's basically it. Feel free to play around with it. It's available on the regular places. Thanks a lot.
Since we started 1 or 2 minutes late, so I think it's fair to have 1 or 2 minutes for questions, if there are any.
Yeah, good morning. You showed the SRF output on the screen. Is it possible to manipulate this data before it's rendered on the screen?
I mean, the data comes from the result of the ask query. So whatever is returned by the ask query is rendered. So when you want to change something, you have to change the data. So you have to change your property values or whatever. This is just another form of representation. So if you have this and use the same ask query, this will get the table. Then you see exactly your data set. So this is just a regular output of SMW. So it's always the data that is annotated on your pages.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Hi. So semantic result formats has been around quite a long time, right? It's from like at least 2007 or 8. I'm curious if you have thoughts on what the correct way to compose multiple semantic MediaWiki related extensions is, and what your thought process is on what features should go in core semantic MediaWiki as opposed to into extensions that are further changing what is available in SMW, but not changing the SMW core on its own.
I mean, the result formats is around since the very beginning of core to keep it separated. So SMW already is quite heavy to maintain, and the set of extensions that are used for the visualization, it's also very heavy. So having both in one repo would probably cause more issues than it solves. And also there are different life cycles. So SMW is somehow slower in releases, whereas the SRF allows you to implement something completely new without waiting for the next Semantic MediaWiki release. That's an important topic to have this separated. But it's somehow special, but it's in the SMW ecosystem. It uses the same way of CI tests on GitHub and so on. So, but we can also talk, if you like, in the break.
Actually, mostly curious if you have anything that you would further prefer to move into separate extensions, or if that's...
I personally don't have any issues with the amount of extensions that are around, as long as we don't have 5 or 6 extensions more or less doing the same, and none of them is really maintained. So that's the reason why I personally like working on GitHub. So I'm less involved in the Garrett Fabricator ecosystem because for us it's not a convenient way of working, but that's a different story. But of course, we should try to get a subset of good working extensions. And that was exactly the reason why I did this presentation. So if you deal with graphs, consider using the 2 of them instead of accidentally taking an old cow or so.
I think we're really out of time, so if it's okay with everyone,
Sure.
more questions over the coffee break, because we also need to